Uli Bubbinger. I'm working as a space journalist in Germany, and it's a privilege to be a moderator for the next 90 minutes. First of all, I'd like to welcome the heads of the space agencies. Again, it's a top-level podium here on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the United States, the NASA Administrator, Charles Bolden. The head of the Federal Space Agency of Russia, for the first time here with us, and we do appreciate this very much. Welcome, Vladimir Popovkin. Representing the European Space Agency, the General Director, Jean-Jacques Dordain. The President of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, Keiichi Tachikawa. And the Vice Chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, Ranganath Navalgund. Welcome, gentlemen. Unfortunately, Steve McLean from the Canadian Space Agency wasn't able to come to Cape Town, and also we can't welcome a representative of the Chinese National Space Administration. This would have been an interesting story, but still we have interesting stories to tell here on the podium. We are all very happy to meet you, distinguished gentlemen, to meet each other here in Cape Town, and as representative of our host country, now, Mr. Sandile Malinga, head of the South African National Space Agency, will briefly welcome you.
President of the IAF, Professor Verbocher, heads of agencies present, heads of space companies and other institutions, cosmonauts and astronauts, eminent scientists and engineers, the young space generation, students who are the future of space science and technology, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This being the first time this Congress comes to Africa, it is a pleasure and an honor to me to welcome on behalf of the heads of space agencies and institutions from Africa, to welcome you all as you are gathered here as heads of agencies of the more developed countries. Over the years, we've enjoyed a very close working relationship with yourself. You've assisted us in a number of ways in establishing our own agencies and programs in our different countries. We're looking forward to an even closer working relationship with yourselves. In the last few days, we have had discussions with yourselves in different forums and meetings where we've discussed how we can even strengthen our working relationship going forward. We believe that the coming of this Congress to Africa for the first time has given you an opportunity to get a good understanding of what we are doing here in Africa in terms of space, science and technology, the programs that we run, the challenges that we face, and the opportunities that are there. We believe that as we meet, even in the next few days, we'll explore these opportunities and look for ways of partnering with yourselves for mutual benefit. In the course of the year, you've embarked in a number of programs in different countries with missions, breakthrough missions, challenges that you've encountered. We are very eager to sit down and listen to what you have to tell us and to hear how, in particular, you'll strengthen your working relationships with developing countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Thank you very much, Sandile Malinga. Ladies and gentlemen, as I already mentioned, our guests have a lot of interesting stories to tell, but to give you the chance to join in, thank you, in our discussion too. Maybe you know this format already from the last years. We agreed to start in a first round with pretty short key statements from the agency's heads on current events. We normally schedule only 5 minutes per person, but what a special space here we are facing. So many special, even historic moments we already have experienced, and still some others are knocking at our doors. So, distinguished gentlemen, I give you 6 minutes. And this bell will help me to remind you if you're running out of time. So if I have to do so, please let me apologize now in advance. There's a reason for the bell, because after a second round where we like to discuss some topics of current interest here on the podium, you will get the chance, and we want to have time for this, you get the chance to join in our discussion. And now that's important. We have a couple of co-moderators here in the hall. So when you give them a sign, they will come to you and hand over a paper where you can write down your questions. My colleagues will collect your questions, and you can start right now with writing your questions, and then your topics will be taken here to the podium. We won't be able to answer all your questions, unfortunately, today, but on the IAC website, the questions were listed, and I suppose also some answers. So maybe now could I ask my colleagues, I hope they are here already, to raise their hands. Stefan are here. I think also on this side are Scott here. So you can find them. When you have written down your questions, you should forward them to our co-moderators. Thank you very much for your attention. And now we start with our round of statements, and we begin with the agency that completed the long chapter of shuttle missions in July, but already just some days ago opened a new page presenting the design of a new rocket. Mr. Bolden, this hasn't been a boring year, right?
People frequently say, boy, it was a tough year for NASA, but since I don't want the bell to catch me, I'm going to give you a very quick synopsis of the year, and then I'll try to go into some detail in the next 2 minutes.
Just put it a little bit more near to the mouth.
A little bit more to the mouth, like that. Okay, I got it. This past year for us was actually, when you look at it, a pretty phenomenal year. We completed the planned construction of the U.S. segment of the International Space Station. As I had said when I became the NASA administrator, we wanted to safely fly out the shuttle, and this past summer we were able to do that. We selected the multipurpose crew vehicle and a space launch system approach for our exploration that we're going to be doing with our international partners. We actually have begun in earnest on a commercial cargo and crew capability. It's well on track, and I expect that we will be delivering cargo to the International Space Station sometime early next year with our commercial partners. We had successful launches of Aquarius, which you heard referenced earlier in the opening session, Juno on its way to Jupiter, Grail, the twin satellites that are on their way to the moon. We had strong bipartisan support in our Congress, and we got what I consider to be an adequate budget, even in these very tough fiscal times, to increase the importance of international cooperation as we move forward. We've had, as I said, what I consider to be an extraordinary year. Just after last year's IAC conference, President Obama signed into law the NASA Authorization Act of 2010. And we had strong bipartisan support in this piece of legislation that gave us clear direction for the road ahead for us. In May, we flew the final space shuttle mission, ending a spectacular 30-year period of operations in low Earth orbit that included a total of 135 flights. The recently announced Space Launch System, or SLS, which is the heavy lift portion of the exploration system, will be our biggest rocket since the Saturn V that launched humans to the moon. We've just decided on the technological path and have announced its acquisition strategy. We've also decided to pursue a multi-purpose crew vehicle based on the Orion vehicle from the Constellation program as the next generation of U.S. spacecraft. Just this past week, I visited a mock-up of MPCV at the Johnson Space Center, and I'm pleased to report to this group that we're well on track to develop this vehicle by the 2016 timeframe. Working closely with our ISS partners, a space station will continue to be the centerpiece for our human spaceflight activities through at least 2020. Last year, the partnership successfully completed the planned ISS assembly, and not long after that, we established a nonprofit organization to maximize our use of that unique facility as a U.S. national laboratory. Through our ISS utilization efforts, we hope to learn more about human health in space and demonstrate critical new technologies that will someday help us to perhaps reach an asteroid, Mars, and other destinations. Commercial transportation of cargo and crew remain crucial, if not critical, to our future aboard the International Space Station. This past December, SpaceX, one of our partners in the Commercial Orbital Transportation Services Program, became the first commercial entity to successfully launch, orbit, and retrieve intact a capsule, demonstrating preliminary capabilities of their Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon crew module. We've also expanded our commercial crew development program with a second round of awards that will allow some of the participants to pursue additional milestones as they develop new systems for reaching low Earth orbit. Science missions continue unabated. In April, as I mentioned, we launched Aquarius to study Earth's ocean salinity and its effects on the climate. It's estimated that scientists will collect more data in the mission's first few months than have been amassed by ships and in-water sensors during the previous 125 years. Juno launched on its 5-year journey to Jupiter in August to learn more about our solar system's largest neighbor, and Grail has launched on a mission to study the moon from crust to core by using its gravity fields. In October, NPP launches to join our already incredible fleet of Earth-observing satellites. It represents a critical first step in building next-generation Earth-observing satellite systems that will collect data on both long-term climate change and short-term weather conditions. And then in November, working with our international partners, we'll start out again for the Red Planet with the Mars Science Laboratory, which will have the most sophisticated set of science instruments ever deployed to the planet's surface and serve as a precursor to human missions to the planet. Our aeronautics research continues strongly as well. The National Research Council's Aeronautics Research and Technology Roundtable, which just kicked off its work last month, will help us to explore needs and systems-level research concepts with the community. So that's sort of a breathtaking quick synopsis of what we consider to be an absolutely spectacular year for NASA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bolden. You saved half an hour to take some breath now. Thank you. I'd like now to hand over to Vladimir Popovkin, head of Roscosmos. Since April, it has been a year with challenges also for the Russian Space Agency, and it's not over yet. So we are very much looking forward to hear your estimation about the status of Russian space activities.
Спасибо. Уважаемые дамы и господа, я хочу поблагодарить организаторов Конгресса в первую очередь за предоставленную возможность изложить то, что было сделано Россией за прошлый год и то, что мы планируем в ближайшем будущем.
So let me first of all thank you all and the organizing committee of this Congress for the opportunity to speak to you and to speak about what Roscosmos have done during the last year and what we plan to do in the upcoming future.
Этот год был необычным не только для нашей страны, но, наверное, и для всего мира, потому что 50 лет назад первый космонавт Земли слетал в космос. Это был Юрий Гагарин, и как бы под этой эгидой проходил весь этот космический год.
This year was exceptional not for us, but for most of the world around, because we had the 50th anniversary of the first human space flight, the flight of Yuri Gagarin, and so on the shadow, I can say, of this event, our activities were done throughout this year.
Что же произошло за этот год? Ну, во-первых, Россия как была самой запускающей державой, так и осталась. Порядка 40 пусков всех ракет приходится на долю России. В этом году мы, по сути дела, реанимировали морской старт, и с морского старта был увиден первый спутник совсем недавно.
So we are continuing to play a leading role in launching activities. We continue to have around 40% share of space launches. And for example, we have rejuvenated the project of sea launch. Recently we had a new launch from this platform.
Мы начали в этом году восстановление группировки метеорологических спутников, вернулись в научный космос, произведя в июле запуск космического аппарата «Радиоастрон», который в ближайшее время уже начнет выполнять свои функции по назначению.
We are continuing to restore our meteorological constellation of satellites. We have launched a geostationary meteorological satellite, and we have made a comeback in the space science. In July this year, we have launched a Radioastron mission, and in the upcoming months, it will be completely commissioned and ready for scientific activities.
На ноябрь планируем осуществить запуск космического аппарата к спутнику Марса, к Фобосу.
And in November we plan to launch a spacecraft to the satellite of Mars, to the Phobos.
И сегодня ночью мы запустили космический аппарат ГЛОНАСС. Таким образом, мы завершили формирование группировки. Теперь в орбитальной группировке 24 аппарата. Система действительно стала глобальной, и в любой точке сегодня Земли можно получать координаты с помощью нашей системы.
And this night we have successfully launched another GLONASS navigation system satellite, and thus we have completed the development of the full constellation of 24 satellites. So now you can access the navigational data from any point around the world.
К сожалению, в этом году были и неудачи. Они еще раз напомнили нам всем, что освоение космоса – это решение очень тяжелых технических проблем, и необходимо понимать, что эта работа требует повышенной опасности, надо быть более очень внимательным, особенно при подготовке и запуске таких объектов.
Though, unfortunately, this year we also had some drawbacks, some failures. They have shown us again that space activities is very technologically advanced and difficult kind of activity. So we must be very, very accurate, and we must work hardly during the pre-flight preparations phase and during the launch phase.
С лета этого года на Россию была возложена такая миссия, как обеспечение Международной космической станции. И вот с учетом той неудачи мы буквально вчера с главами агентств космических, которые участники программы МКС, обговорили, как до конца года мы восстановим те темпы и порядок эксплуатации этой станции. И первый, могу довести до всех, первый полет от космонавтов запланирован, первый пуск после вот этого перерыва запланирован на 14 ноября этого года.
And taking into account the fact that from the summer this year the crew rotation of ISS is done by us, and taking into account these recent failures, yesterday we had a meeting of ISS partners agencies, and we have discussed what will be done till the end of this year to return to the schedule of ISS crew rotations, and so we currently plan to have a first launch of piloted spacecraft to ISS starting from this failure on November 14th.
Если говорить о перспективах, то в в нашей космической программе сейчас несколько такие проведены коррективы, и основное направление и основной приоритет будет отдан программам создания спутников дистанционного зондирования Земли, связи и по научным программам.
As for our perspectives, currently we are doing some changes in our space program, and we plan to give the first priority to the programs of the development of Earth observation satellites, of telecommunications, and scientific satellites exploration.
И в заключение хотел бы сказать, что те грандиозные задачи, которые ставит сегодня каждое из агентств, в том числе и мы, конечно, немыслимо международного сотрудничества.
And as doing a kind of resume, I would like to say again that current large-scale space exploration programs, space development programs, are unthinkable without broader international cooperation.
И мы как бы видим три таких направления международной кооперации и международного сотрудничества. Это первое в области навигации, где сегодня есть система GPS, ГЛОНАСС, где Европа делает Галилео, где есть навигационная система, которую делает Китай. Мне кажется, здесь нужна более глубокая интеграция и взаимодополнение этих систем.
And we plan to have three main paths of development of this international cooperation. First of them is navigational systems. For example, we have GPS, we have GLONASS, we will have in the upcoming future Galileo and Chinese compass. We must think about interchangeability and that these systems can sustain each other.
С учетом перевода я прошу еще одну минуту. Вторым таким направлением, которое уже есть образец, это Международная космическая станция, это продолжение международной кооперации по пилотируемой тематике.
Second path is continuation of our activities concerning ISS, concerning the international cooperation on this space station.
И третье направление – это, конечно, научный комплекс, научные направления, научный космос.
And third is scientific studies, exploration.
Сегодня космос – это единственная среда, на которой нет границ, и поэтому там, конечно, мы должны быть все вместе. Спасибо.
Currently, space is the only place we do not have frontiers, and so we shall unite there.
Thank you so much indeed, Vladimir Popovkin. Thank you. There's a strong connection between Russia and ESA space activity in October now when Soyuz will launch from Kourou. So I'm happy to pass the floor to Monsieur Jean-Jacques Dordain, General Director of the European Space Agency. And as you see maybe in the screen in some seconds, our questions we are waiting for can also become by Twitter. So we're expecting questions also all over the world. But now I'm looking forward to hear the remarks from Mr. Dordain.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I shall start by the fact that this morning we have heard at least 5 times, is not 10 times, that this is the first time that the Congress is taking place in Africa. And it took 60 years for the International Astronautical Congress to come to Africa. But I would like to say that it took much less time for ESA to cooperate with Africa. And we have not waited for that Congress to start cooperation with Africa. And the cooperation between ESA and Africa is for the benefit of Africa, or at least we hope, but for the benefit of ESA also. And there are several activities that ESA could not do without Africa. I shall not list all the themes of cooperation, but I would like just to mention the Tiger program, because the Tiger program is a very important program that we have mentioned a lot yesterday. That program consists of training African experts on water management, and especially we have a strong cooperation with the Department of Water of South Africa for that Tiger program. But on the other way around, we have tracking stations in Africa, and we could not launch Ariane 5 without stations located in Africa, meaning that we need that cooperation with Africa. Having said that, I would like to say that ESA is changing a lot. Last year, when we talked, we were 18 member states. Today, we are 19. We are 19 member states, and next year we shall be 20 member states, because the 19th one is Romania and the 20th one will be Poland. Meaning that if we are continuing to have one more member state per year, I think that it will not take too long to have more and more member states. And next week we shall have the Council of ESA, and for the first time in history of ESA, the 10 EU member states, which are not yet members of ESA, will attend the ESA Council, which together with Canada will make 30 countries around the table of the ESA Council. And 30 countries is around one-sixth of the countries of the world sitting around the table of ESA, which makes ESA more and more relevant. In terms of programs and missions, I would like to start by tomorrow, because tomorrow there will be an important event at ESA. At the Science Program Committee, the member states will select the two first science missions of the Cosmic Vision to be launched in 2017-2018. And these two first missions will be selected out of 3 candidates, which are Solar Orbiter, that we are doing in cooperation with NASA, Euclid, to make a cartography of dark energy, and Plateau, to study exoplanets. And tomorrow, we shall know the two ones which will fly in 2017-2018. In the next few days also, we shall sign the contract with Astrium Service on the European Data Relay Satellite. This is a very important program, a new way of working, because it's a cooperation between ESA and the German Space Agency, DLR, and it's also a public-private partnership with a private operator. Obviously, and the coordinator has already mentioned that we shall have the launch of the 2 first Galileo satellites by Soyuz from French Guiana on the 20th of October. This is an important event because this is the result of a cooperation between ESA and Russia. And this is also the result of a cooperation between ESA and the European Commission for what concerns Galileo. And I would like to congratulate my colleague, Monsieur Popovkin, for the launch of last night, because this is the same type of Soyuz which will launch Galileo on the 20th of October. So you have opened the door for that launch on the 20th of October. Thank you for that. On the 14th of October, there will be the flight readiness review of Vega, which is the other launcher that we are developing. And this is on the 14th of October that I shall decide the date of that first launch in a window which is still covering December of this year, January next year. On the 4th of November, we shall have the landing of the crew of Mars 500. They will land on Earth. I must say that they have not been on Mars, but we have simulated that trip to Mars. And this was the first time in history that that crew is made of 3 Russian astronauts, 2 ESA astronauts, and 1 Chinese astronaut. And this is an important event, not only for the simulation, but also for that cooperation between Russia, ESA, and China. On the 21st of December, we shall have the launch of our astronauts Andrei Kuipers to the space station for a 6-month stay on board the space station. Speaking of the space station, on the 29th of February, we shall launch the ATV-3, Eduardo Amaldi. Then in spring, we shall launch Swarm, which is the 4th Earth Explorer mission, followed by METOP-B, B, which is the second meteorological satellite in polar orbit, obviously in close cooperation with EUMETSAT. We shall have the launch of Galileo 3 and 4 summer next year. MSG3, Meteosat second generation number 3, also during summer next year. And then followed by the launch of AlphaSat, a strong public-private partnership with the operator Inmarsat. The second launch of Vega also, end of next year. The launch of Gaia, a significant science mission. And Galileo 5 and 6. So just to say that when you are looking at all these missions, which will take place in the next 12, 14 months, and if I add the national missions of national space agencies in Europe, I think that we shall have, on average, at least one mission per month, which is not bad for Europe, still small compared to United States and Russia, but I think that a significant pace. And I would say that, in a way, ESA is delivering the best science and the best technology within a wide range of activity, because all the missions that I have mentioned concern science, services, telecommunications, launchers, human spaceflight, so it's a wide range of activities and a lot of cooperation. Cooperation with national agencies, cooperation with the European Commission, with industry, with international partners, Russia, NASA, China. And this is the drivers, and I shall conclude by that. This will be the drivers for the Council at ministerial level, which will take place at the end of next year, in November 2012. Yes, it will be made in difficult economic conditions, but the objectives are worth the investments, because the objectives are knowledge, competitiveness, and services, and the drivers will be innovation and cooperation. Cooperation is a key word for ESA. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Monsieur Dordain. I think the core topic, cooperation, we will discuss this later on. And now we will learn something more about the status and plans of JAXA. We face the launch of HTV2 this year and many more interesting topics. Mr. Tachikawa, for the next 6 minutes, and maybe adding 2 or 3 for your interpreter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for warm solidarity and support extended by a number of space-related organizations from all over the world on the occasion of the Great East Japan earthquake, which occurred this March. We also received heartfelt letters of sympathy from a number of organizations, which encouraged us indeed. Furthermore, we have received more than 5,000 scenes of satellite images of the affected area from many organizations through international cooperation frameworks, such as the International Disaster Charter. They were utilized for countermeasures after the earthquake by concerned organizations, and I felt keenly the importance of the space exploration and the international cooperation. Now, I would like to introduce a summary of last year's developments on behalf of JAXA. So, yes, you can see slide. HTV2, we call a Konotori, was launched this January, and it successfully completed its all missions without fail. JAXA intends to steadily carry out the cargo supply to the International Space Station, which is an important purpose of HTV. About Kibo, Japanese experiment module in the ISS, the year before last, it has been in full-scale operation. Many Japanese astronauts are now in charge of advanced missions. Astronaut Satoshi Furukawa flew to the ISS aboard the Soyuz and started the long-term stay in the ISS this June. This is the third assignment for the Japanese astronaut to reside at the ISS. Among ISS partners, the United States, Japan, Europe, and Russia decided to extend the ISS operation to 2020 or beyond. We are pleased to inform you that the workshop for introducing the utilization of the ISS accomplishments by 2020 will be held in December this year in Japan. We do hope that you will join us. Next, let me introduce our recent activities. Michibiki, the first satellite of the quasi-Zenith satellite system, launched in September last year, has been operating properly, and JAXA proceeded its operation to regular mode in December last year. Its technical and applicational verification on GPS availability and performance enhancement have been steadily proceeded. Akatsuki, the Venus Climate Orbiter, also known as Planet C, launched in May last year, but failed to inject itself into the orbit of Venus in December last year. And it is currently in the orbit of the Sun. Its onboard instruments are operating normally, and JAXA is now investigating the cause of the failure toward a second attempt at orbital insertion around Venus in future. Icarus, the small solar power cell demonstrator launched with Akatsuki, successfully verified the world's first power generation by the thin film solar cells on the membrane of the cell. In addition, JAXA acquired the navigation techniques such as the attitude control method using sunlight pressure. As for the future plan, Global Change Observation Mission First Water, we call GCOM W1, and also HTB3 to deliver supplies for the ISS are scheduled to be launched in 2012, next year. Finally, I will show the JAXA's Space Cooperation for the Asia-Pacific region. The APR-SURF, Asia-Pacific Regional Space Agency Forum, has been holding annual meetings organized jointly in the Asia-Pacific region. The 17th session was held in Melbourne, Australia, in November last year, with 230 participants from 23 countries and regions and 11 international organizations. APR-SURF supports such international projects as Sentinel Asia for the Disaster Monitoring Corporation and SAFE, SAFE for the environmental monitoring. We, by making the best use of this framework, aim at promoting cooperative activities in order to exploit space development and utilization by countries in Asia and the Pacific for our sustainable development. We are pleased to inform you that the next APR-SURF 18 will be held from 6 to 9th December this year in Singapore. We do hope that you will join us at the APRS 18 with all your space-related colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tachikawa. Thank you. I think one impressive thing with the Japanese space community is the involvement of the people in the country. They are devising so poetical names for your missions. I learned that your GCOM W1 mission is now officially nicknamed Shizuku, which means drop of water. And you found that nickname in a nationwide contest, so this is a good way to involve the people, I think. And now we come to India, and we will learn also that it has been a very busy year also for ISRO. I'm glad to hand over to Mr. Navalgund.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity. It has been an exciting year for the Indian Space Research Organization. We have had many successful launches. ResourceSat-2, which is essentially an Earth observation satellite carrying multispectral at different resolutions coexisting, was launched successfully, and the data is being received, and it is a global mission. We have also had very successful 3 communication satellite launches, 2 of them to augment the communication space infrastructure in the country itself, and 1 of them was on commercial basis, the HYLAS, which was a communication satellite. In addition to that, we are now making available the data, the wind vector data global, as well as the ocean color global data to all the community in the globe, which is available from OceanSat-2. We have also had the remote sensing data policy existing in the country passed by the parliament, so that the dissemination of the data is as per the policy and guidelines enunciated by the government. We have had one unique experiment, that was the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, where the undergraduate education for essentially in the space science and technology is being provided. The first batch of students, in fact, graduated this year, and they have been working in various centers of ISRO. We have also had quite a bit of progress in the GSLV Mark III, geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle capable of taking 4-ton payloads into space. A very exciting mission, which is the Indo-French joint mission on Meghatropic, is scheduled for launch on October the 12th, because of which Chairman Dr. Radhakrishnan couldn't be here. In fact, this is one which carries 4 very important sensors to measure the hydrology of the tropics of the entire globe. The low inclination of plus 20 degrees, we would be able to provide much frequent data over the tropics and would help study the hydrology, not only in the Asian equatorial regions, but also in the African as well as the South American equatorial regions.
Sorry, I think we have a chart for this, so if it's possible to yes, bring us the chart, then from the Megatrophic, the slide from the Megatrophic program, yes, it would be supporting.
Next. Yeah, right.
Yes,
that is the one. The next one, we also have a very exciting next year with a large number of programs which are being scheduled. We have a C-band synthetic aperture radar which provides not only resolutions of different kinds, but also the larger swath in order to help agricultural monitoring globally, is also being scheduled for launch next year. We also have a launch of SARAL, another Indo-French mission, which actually consists of 2 important payloads, Ka-band radio altimeter as well as a GAUSS payload, which is also scheduled for launch next year. We have a meteorological satellite, INSAT 3D, carrying a 19-channel sounder as well as 6-band imager, which are also scheduled for launch sometime next year. We have 2 more important communication satellites in order to augment the space communication infrastructure in the country. That is also scheduled for launch. And we have first of the satellites belonging to the Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, which comprises 7 satellites, that is also getting ready and will be ready for launch next year.
Maybe we could see this slide also.
Yeah, next. And also we have an astro satellite which measures the radiation coming at all wavelength regions, right from ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays, as well as the visible and near infrared, is also supposed to be launched in the next year. So we do have a very busy next year with many of these launches belonging to Earth observation, communication, as well as space science. Our endeavor has been to ensure that the space infrastructure, both in terms of communication and Earth observations, are augmented, enhanced, and continually available to enhance the social benefits of the country. And parallelly, of course, in order to make sure that the satellites are put into appropriate orbits, we are also working on the launch vehicle programs, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, which is a robust vehicle, as well as the geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle. These are some of the topics that we have for the next year. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nawalgund. A lot of work to do. We do appreciate very much that you took your time to come to us to Cape Town. Thank you. Now let's focus on some of the key topics you gentlemen already mentioned, and that will be coming up in the Congress also, I'm convinced. I think one point, Mr. Bolden, which is discussed with passion right now, is the evolution of the agency industry setup. We do recognize pretty quick steps in the competition of private companies building up a scenario for low Earth orbit rockets and capsule facilities. So how quick we will see an overall functioning operational system?
Well, I think the story of exploration for us is already being written. As I mentioned in my formal comments, it is months before we have commercial entities carrying cargo for NASA to the International Space Station, not years. I like to ask a question when I'm at a formal gathering of very well-informed people back in the United States. I ask them, how long do they think it's going to be before the U.S. has a domestic capability to put cargo in low Earth orbit and to take it to the International Space Station? And, you know, and I go around the room and most people say, well, 3 years or 5 years, or they guess all over, but it's merely months, because we have two companies right now, Orbital Sciences and SpaceX, that are preparing to fly their final demonstration missions before they are cleared to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. So we're months away from doing that. And even as we sit here, there are additional companies now, some of them joining with international partners in thinking about ways that they want to help us take crew to the International Space Station. And we have a variety of vehicle types when you look at them. Everything from Sierra Nevada and the Dream Chaser, which is looks like a miniature shuttle, a winged vehicle, to most of the companies who are doing capsules. We're also already building a space capsule for deep space exploration, as I mentioned before, and that's the multi-purpose crew vehicle. Just about a month ago, I announced that we had selected the architecture for our heavy lift system. We're now working with industry. In fact, just the 29th of this past month, last week, we had an industry day in Huntsville, Alabama, where we brought industry in to talk to us about their ideas to help us build the future heavy lift launch system. In addition to those two building blocks, the MPCV and the SLS, we're also looking at new technologies that are going to enable us to do the kinds of things in deep exploration that humans have always wanted to do but have not been capable of doing. And those are, when Mr. Popovkin and I talked yesterday, the Roscosmos, like NASA, has what they call a technology roadmap. What we're trying to do now with all of our international partners, as we've done through a group called the ISRO, is to take a look at the technologies, the gaps that we have in being able to send humans to deep space destinations like an asteroid, back to the moon, to Mars, and even other places. And so I think we're all working on that right now. In aviation, you know, we're looking out over the next 10 to 20 years. In the aviation industry, the type of airplane is pretty much set for the next 15 years. It's a tube wings, the standard kind of airplane you're looking at. But for those of you who are aviation enthusiasts, we would like to work with our industry in trying to bring about some new types of vehicles, perhaps what we call blended wing bodies that don't look like today's airplane but are much more efficient. We're trying to make sure that we have clean aviation, airplanes that fly much more efficiently on the fuel wherever it is that's produced. That's one of our challenges, is helping industry find engines that can burn just about anything that anybody can bring, and that's the challenge for us. We're also working with our partners in the FAA back in the United States, as well as some of our international partners and industry, on helping to bring about what we call the next generation air transport system. Not only fuel efficient, clean airplanes, but a new modernized system that allows those airplanes, if you will, to talk to each other so that they're not reliant on a ground controller on the ground to smooth their course into a destination or smooth their departure out. So there's no stopping and starting and stair-stepping as you go away. And we've already flown tests in places like San Francisco International Airport. We have a flight coming from Australia back to the West Coast that's going to demonstrate some of these new technologies, and we're really hopeful for that. We're going to continue to undertake the world-class science, as I mentioned, working with many of our partners here. You heard some of them talk about their projects. In many cases, we're piggybacking. We're trying to involve colleges and universities, academia and industry, in helping us to think about new ways to do the kinds of science that we want to do. So I think we're making steady progress in helping us to realize President Obama's dream when he became president and gave us his vision for where we should be going as a nation. Modernizing, doing things affordably, making sure that we can sustain the programs that we put in place, and working with our international partners to expand that partnership. And I look at Mr. Malinga, Dr. Malinga, my friend who heads the South African Space Agency. He and I and several other members of other space agencies from the continent of Africa got together yesterday to talk about, how we integrate them even more appropriately into the future of exploration, and I'm really excited about that. So I think our future is bright. You're going to hear from some youngsters here as I apologize to the Space Generation Congress members. They don't like being called youngsters, but they are youngsters because of their ideas. They're young in spirit and young in mind, and I think one of the things we have to do is be willing to turn it over to them, because they'll take us to the future that we need.
Thank you. Mr. Popovkin, how necessary it will be in the international space community when we look into the future to think in modular concepts where international cooperation maybe becomes easier. So at which point you would define the interface between nationwide projects and multinational projects?
Если говорить о создании какого-то интерфейса для реализации пилотируемых перспективных программ, то есть хороший опыт в эксплуатации, в приходе в создании к эксплуатации Международной космической станции. Именно этот опыт и надо использовать. Он себя хорошо зарекомендовал, и я не вижу тут никаких больших проблем.
When we are talking about some interface between space agencies which could help them to interact and to develop joint space exploration projects, first of all, we shall took our experience on ISS. We see that we are cooperating on ISS, and I don't see big problems, big obstacles which could make our path more difficult in the future.
И проблема здесь, на мой взгляд, не столько в интерфейсе, сколько в дальнейших путях развития пилотируемой тематики.
I believe that what is more important is not creating some kind of interface between space countries, space powers, but to find and to coordinate paths for future development.
И вот господин Болден говорил как раз о вчерашней встрече, и мы договорились создать как раз экспертную группу, которая посмотрела, каковы дальнейшие пути развития пилотируемой тематики, куда идти, Марс, Луна, астероиды, или дальше продолжать эксперименты вокруг Земли.
And Mr. Bolden has already told us about our yesterday's meeting when we have decided to create an expert-level group between our agencies which will assess what shall we do in the field of piloted exploration. Shall we go to Mars or to Moon or to near-Earth objects, or shall we just stick to the low Earth orbit and go on further with experimentations on low Earth orbit?
И когда мы получим ответ на этот вопрос, тогда можем говорить об интерфейсах. Спасибо.
And when we will decide on this path to the future, then we will create an interface to implement this vision.
Thank you. And I got here. Yes, please. Thank you. I just got here a couple of questions. In the first glance, most of them are concerned in the topics of cooperation. I come to this a minute later, but maybe first, Mr. Dordain. Yesterday, I heard you praising your favorite Apollo mission, which was not Apollo 11, but you were talking pretty poetical from a mission which has taken place Christmas '68. Bowman, Lovell, Enders, Apollo 8. So when we talk about cooperation, for sure this was a US mission at that time, but it was the beginning of something, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it's what I have said last night. Apollo 11 was the result of a competition, and okay, at that time it was the U.S. flag which was the first to be on the moon. But 40 years later, I must say that the fact that it was the U.S. flag is not anymore relevant. I think that what is the most important message coming from Apollo is, as I said, the mission of Apollo 8, because Apollo 8 was Christmas, and this is already something. The fact that it was Christmas, and it was the first time that a crew of 3 US astronauts were escaping the gravity of the Earth, making a turn around the moon. And the most important sentence was made by one of the astronauts, Bill Anders, who said when he was back from the other side of the moon, he said, and for me this is the most important sentence of the Apollo program, he said, "We have made all this way to explore the moon, but the most important thing is that we have discovered planet Earth." And that is the message which is the most important message of the Apollo program, is that planet Earth is just one ball of golf. This is the way he has described the planet Earth floating in the universe. And from that very moment, number one, I think that the awareness that the future on planet Earth is a global future. There is no individual future on planet Earth. I think that we shall be all together in that future, and we have to prepare that future all together. And I think that this is from that very moment that the cooperation has started. Because when you think that, and I said that when I was in Moscow to celebrate the 12th of April '61, I said it's 50 years of human spaceflight, but on 50 years, it was only 8 years of competition and 42 years of cooperation. Because right after Neil Armstrong on the moon, the cooperation was starting between United States and USSR at that time with the Apollo-Soyuz program on 75. And since then, the cooperation has built up step by step, to the point that today we are 5 partners on board the space station, and I hope that one day we shall be even more. And I think that this is the way we have to cooperate in the future. It's not only cooperation among the spacefaring nations, but it's also cooperation for all citizens of the world. I think that we have to associate as much as possible all countries to what we are doing, because what we are doing is focused on all citizens. I think that you were speaking of climate change, of natural disasters, water, food, energy. All these issues are for all citizens. This is not only for a part of the citizens, it's for all citizens. And I think that this is what we have to do all together. It's to make sure that we shall cooperate more and more, but without excluding anyone. I think that we have to build up the future all together.
Thank you. I'm happy now to come over to the first question from the auditorium coming by Twitter and goes to Mr. Tachikawa. Mr. Tachikawa, some months ago, people around the world have been praying for Japan when the awful tsunami overran your coasts with all the consequences. On your website, JAXA is presenting its vision, and the first point gives attention to disaster management. So, did Fukushima tell the Japanese people, and the people all over the world, I think, that this is all about to build a secure society with the help of space tools? And I think we need one more mic.
Okay. In Japan, JAXA is targeting to promote a more space satellite utilization in terms of such as disaster management and also environmental issues. So first of all, we are already launched the Daiichi for Earth observation, and this satellite was very useful for disaster management. So this satellite already provided many scenes of images around the world after the disasters. Of course, this satellite very much useful for disaster in Japan this March. So we would like to continue to such activities to launch a new satellite after Daiichi. We call EROS 2 and 3. So maybe next 2013 we will launch EROS 2 and also EROS 3 will be continued. It's just a disaster management. And also, we would like to promote a more environmental issue. So we are now trying to develop a new satellite. Before that, last year, 2009, JAXA launched the green gas observing satellite we call IBUKI. The data of the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide and methane is released to scientists and researchers all over the world for the purpose of contributing to solve climate change. The operation of advanced land observation satellite itself was very much useful, but we need another new satellite after the IBUKI 2. Also, Japan is very much concerned about environmental, another issue. We call, say, global change observation mission, especially for water and also climate. So we are now trying to launch such a satellite, GCOM W1 next year, and also climate in the future. So we are very much concerned about such issues.
Thank you. If you think about this, Mr. Nawalgund, space tools operating and for the benefit of the citizens. You just presented us your mission, upcoming mission, Megatropic. Just yesterday I heard a presentation by Professor Liebeck, the ESA Director of Earth Observation Programs, and he quoted an interesting study some weeks ago published in the Nature magazine, and this study found that in El Niño years, twice as many civil wars occurred on the global level, suggesting that there's a link between climatic developments and societal stress levels. So missions like your Indo-French mission Megatropic is a peace-building mission then, or?
Yeah, Megatropic, Mega essentially means clouds in Sanskrit, and tropico, basically tropics in the French word. So Megatropic is a joint mission, and it studies clouds and precipitation, which is extremely important. It causes floods, it causes droughts. So this is an extremely important mission carrying 4 important sensors to measure the clouds, how do they originate, how much water vapor do they contain, how much liquid water is there, and how much does it precipitate along the tropical regions of the globe. So this is something which is considered as a first contribution to the global precipitation mission of JAXA and NASA. And it would be very important to have these particular data sets in terms of climate change as well as societal benefits in many of the countries along the tropics. Now, this data would be available immediately after the initial phase of operations of 9 months or so, including calibration validation for the entire global community, freely available on the website, so that that could be used to many of the not only scientific investigations, but also very important socially relevant and beneficial applications as well.
Thank you very much. I think the free data policy is one core topic in this field. I come back to questions coming. Thank you very much for this from the auditorium. Unfortunately, there's no name. I think this goes to Mr. Bolden. I put 2 questions together. The first, China is making large progress in the space sector, but still there are hardly international projects with China to be seen. Is this because China does not choose to be part of international project or international space community, do not recognize China's effort? And I add the second question, can America, given the current economic situation, put aside political issues and work together with China?
I didn't hear the first question, to be quite honest, so if you could just give me the gist of the first one.
It goes in the same direction. Where's the reason why there's no cooperation with China in space sector?
I think if you look at what America is doing today, we are working cooperatively with, if you talk about the member nations of the partnership of the International Space Station, to include ESA, which is 15 growing to 19 and then 20 some odd, we have an extensive international cooperation going on. We're focused right now on essentially enhancing our use of the International Space Station with the partners that we have, but looking to bring on additional partners. We have made an agreement among ourselves that we will not open up the partnership, but that we encourage members to go out and seek relationships with others. So there may be other nations that each of us will go out and seek to engender partnerships with. I think most of you may be aware of the fact that I am prohibited by law from doing any bilateral relations with the Chinese right now. So that's one thing that just limits what I can do, and that's just life. But I do believe that when I come to an assembly like this, and I have an opportunity to work with the Space Generation Congress, the young people there, as we did when I listened to some of their presentations on Friday and then spoke to them Friday night, or when I go to a school like South Peninsula High School here in Cape Town, a school that has taken kids from underprivileged areas and kids who don't have the advantages that, say, some of the private schools here in South Africa might have, and you listen to their questions and you see where they want to take the world. You know, they really do want it to be a better place. And that's what we're trying to do. We work with the nations that are available for us to work with, try to enhance our cooperation with them, try to utilize the best we can one thing that we have not talked about is the field of education. It's a challenge for all of us, STEM education. So we really try to reach out to those nations that are established partners through my State Department and do the best we can to enhance their ability to bring up the quality of education in STEM-related courses, science, engineering, math, while we continue to work with our established partners on the International Space Station.
In terms of cooperation, China made an interesting step towards the USA. I don't know whether you know this, Mr. Bowden, but the governmental Chinese TV played just seconds after the launch of the space station module, just 3 days ago, the melody of America the Beautiful. Did you know this already? That's right. We don't know the reason up to now. We don't know it, no. But let's take this as a sign, maybe. Okay, another question from the auditorium coming from Christoph. Thank you for giving the name. It's to all, but maybe you allow me to address this to Roscosmos and to Mr. Popovkin, because you have the longest experience in satellite business. I read this. Situation becomes critical in low Earth orbits due to a collision cascading effect. Kessler syndrome. I don't know that, but it's an expert already. Studies show that in order to stabilize environment, it is necessary to retrieve 5 to 10 large objects per year. Can you describe the plans, if there are plans, in that sense? So the debris removal problem, how to handle the satellites who are not active anymore.
Что касается борьбы с космическим мусором, конечно, это вопрос на сегодня не только российской стороны, это вопрос всего человечества. Действительно, особенно на начальном этапе освоения космоса, когда сроки службы аппаратов были маленькие, и не задумывались о том, какие последствия, естественно, засорили космическое пространство, и в то время не было ни траектории увода, ни таких могильных орбит, куда отводились не отработавшие аппараты. С этим, конечно, надо бороться. Но как сегодня бороться? На сегодня готовых решений по борьбе с космическим мусором нет.
We see that we understand the graviness of the situation we have with the quantity of space objects in space, and especially of space debris. We know that in the beginning of space era, most players in space activities, they were launching space objects without thinking about consequences. Nobody thought of satellite passivization, about graveyard orbits, and so on and so on. But as we talk about how to mitigate this problem, how to counter it, we do not have currently any solution ready.
И в России, как, в общем-то, и все другие страны, использующие космическое пространство, ищут пути решения этих проблем. И я думаю, когда-то все равно перед нами всеми встанет вопрос необходимости очистки космического пространства. Но еще раз говорю, эта проблема сегодня более философская, чем имеющие технические решения.
Of course, we will work hardly on developing solutions to mitigate the propagation of space debris. But currently, with our current technological level, it's a more philosophical problem, and we do not see any solution ready.
Thank you. I put again 2 questions together, and maybe I'd like this to address to Mr. Dordain. It concerns the manpower in the agencies. The first is, space culture has changed drastically over the past decades. How are you ensuring space science and engineering remains relevant to young scientists and engineers? And the second, by Luisa. Judging by the age of the panel, it comes not by Twitter, I think she's around here, is that how long it takes to head an agency, or do you have plans to fasten up and to bring young persons to leadership positions more faster?
Okay. It's difficult to hear, but okay, I understood that the first question was on the was on what? Because I must say I am sorry, but it's difficult to understand what you are saying. What is the question?
So the question is, how could you inspire the young generation to come to space business anymore? Thank you very much. How can you inspire the young generation to come to space business, to join space industry or agencies? And okay. The second question was, how can I become a head of an agency?
Okay. So I assume that the second question is when I shall retire. I must say that as soon as I can. And I hope that there will be, the space generation will live. I must say that we are at an age where we shall live, so there will be opportunities for becoming the heads of agencies. No doubt on that. Now, yes, this is true that space activities, whatever will be the future space activities, there will be one important factor of all space activities in the future, is that they will be more and more complex and more difficult. Because we are pushing the frontier of knowledge, and to push the frontier of knowledge, we have to push the frontier of technology. I have seen in newspaper that the science missions of ESA are longer and longer, but this is because they are more and more difficult. And the technologies that we have to develop are more and more difficult technologies. Because this is the only way to make progress. And to develop more and more these technologies, we have more and more the need to have the best experts. And yes, you are right. I think that we have to attract the young generation, and we have to make sure that among the youngsters, the best will come to space. And that this is certainly a challenge for all of us. And obviously, we have to talk to them. We have to tell them how beautiful it is to work for space. But in my view, there is one very simple solution. It's to give them projects which are in the short term. I must say that if I am going to young generations and I tell them that the next high technology missions will take place in 10, 15 years from now, I must say not very attractive. When we have started ourselves, the space generation, it took only 3 years between Sputnik and Gagarin. It took only 7 years between Gagarin and Neil Armstrong. And all that was so quick that, yes, there was a strong motivation. So I think that what we have to do, and obviously it's not only our decision. Let's say, I am sure that Monsieur Bolden, Monsieur Popovkin, Monsieur Tashikawa, we all want to have good missions and as quickly as possible. So this is a collective challenge that we have to provide to the young generations the perspective to work on concrete missions in the short term and not only in 15 years or 25 years from now.
Thank you. I have one more coming via Twitter. This goes to Mr. Bolden. Very short. Any future for trips to outer planets? So, Mr. Bolden, just some days ago you presented the design of the Liberty rocket, and I must confess your guys from the marketing department did a marvelous job on your homepage. There is an animation film of a launch. And I think everybody will be reminded to the Saturn V rocket because it's big and it's spotless white and it's beautiful. But in the moment, it's just marketing. So coming back to this question. Is the Liberty program maybe the flagship program for the next 20 years, which brings also the trips to outer planets?
And I think you're saying Liberty, and that may be what the question said. Is that what the question said? Because I'm having a difficult time. Was it did you say Liberty or SLS?
No, Liberty. It's going. The question is
Liberty?
Trips to outer planets.
Okay,
maybe Liberty the first step.
Okay, and what I wanted to clarify for people is, you know, Liberty is a vehicle that is the result of collaboration actually between an American company and a European consortium. So there is a vehicle that is being offered in competition, potentially in competition for commercial crew to low Earth orbit. So I won't address that, but it is, you know, it is one of the viable entrants in that program. In terms of our efforts to reach the outer planets, you know, as I mentioned before, we have incredible challenges ahead of us in terms of developing technical capabilities that enable us to put humans into deep space. Tackling the radiation issue, speed, for example. I think all of us want to develop new generation or technological leaps in terms of in-space propulsion, so that a trip to Mars is no longer 8 months, but maybe you cut it in half. That really changes the chances of survival for a human being doing that. So I would say yes, the SLS is an evolvable system as we envision it. Pictures, don't pay any attention to pictures, because I think for most of you who are, I am not a rocket scientist, but for most of you who are, if you want to send something right now to deep space and bring it back at the speeds with which it travels, it requires a capsule. So that's why it looks like a capsule, at least for now. And rockets, we don't have any, you know, short, squatty body rockets that aren't long, like a Soyuz or a Proton or an Ariane or something else. So if you look at one, you've seen them all in terms of shape. So don't be misguided by that. But ours is one that we hope will evolve and enable us to get not just humans, but scientific payloads to deep space much quicker and much more efficiently than we can do today.
So just get this Page Liberty program is not NASA's heavy lift program. That's so correct. I did a mistake. I apologize. Sure, you're right. So thank you for your questions. The technical sessions are going to start within 5 minutes, but I would like to invite you gentlemen. I hope we all will come together next year in Naples, and in the conclusion, just short conclusion statement from everybody of you. What do you see as the main challenge facing your agency and your space community over the next 12 months until hopefully we meet again in Naples for IAC 2012? Please, just 2 or 3 sentences about the next 12 months. What is your challenge, Mr. Navalgund, your challenge?
While we have done extremely well with respect to the Earth observation capability and using it for the societal benefit areas, one of the challenges for us is to build launch vehicles which can take much larger payloads into space, so that cost to benefit ratio of these launch vehicles in the space program itself becomes much more viable. That's the challenge that we have.
Thank you. Mr. Tachikawa.
First of all, we would like to promote a more utilization of ISS for humankind. So we would like to set up some new scenario for 2020. So maybe next year we would like to agree among our ISS partners, number one. Secondly, in Japan, we are now planning to launch such a climate observation satellite. So we hope our such a target should be successfully done.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Dordain, what do you define as the main topic?
Oh, I think that the most difficult challenge for ESA is just to make sure that all the missions that we have in front of us are a success, because each mission is difficult, and starting by each launch. And speaking of launcher, maybe there is a special challenge for ESA. During 30 years, we have exploited only one launcher, Ariane. From the end of this year, we shall exploit in parallel 3 launchers, and I think that that will make a difference. And what I would like is that we succeed that opening of a new cycle in the ESA history of launchers.
Thank you very much.
На следующий год я бы выделил несколько задач. Первое — это, я согласен с господином Дарденом, это выполнение всех планов запусков, которые мы планируем. Вторая задача — это выполнение международных обязательств по космической станции, чтобы все транспортно-техническое обеспечение МКС было осуществлено вовремя и в срок. И третья задача — это развертывание работ на космодроме Восточный.
From our point of view, we have 3 main priorities. First one, and I am agree with what Mr. Dordan have said, we must accomplish everything we have planned, especially in the field of launch activities. Secondly, we shall go on with cooperation on ISS. We have to stick to the schedule and to accomplish all of our international obligations on ISS, crew rotation and provision. And third one is to proceed with activities on building Vostochny spaceport.
I think I would just echo what everybody else has said, because they talked about the difficulties of international cooperation, keeping things affordable. That is the challenge for all of us. And in all of the discussion that we will have in the coming days and the coming weeks and months, they will always turn to affordability. How do we do the things that we have on the books, that we have planned, that were planned in a time totally different fiscally? So how do we execute the programs that we have in place that are well along the way and do them in an affordable manner? But I cannot help but say, I think one of the other biggest challenges for all of us, not just for the coming year, but for years ahead, goes back to one of the questions asked, and that is finding a way to reach the young people of the world and help them understand that what we do is fun, exciting, absolutely necessary and critical for humanity, and that they want to be a part of it. Things like the Space Generation Congress has done in their days here, and others do, and things like the young people in the Space Education Board meeting that's going on this week also. So those are some of the critical challenges for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowden. Thank you very much indeed, everybody on the podium. I'm sure we now have more than enough to discuss in the workshops. Thank you for coming here today and for your questions. I wish you an inspiring time, and thank you again, gentlemen, for being with us. Goodbye, everybody.